He seems to have no feelings whatever about them as human beings.
John Wayne Gacy murder.
John Wayne Gacy.
End of the worst mass killer in American history. John Wayne Gacy.
Hey besties, and welcome back to my shit show. If you're new, my name is BLACISREN, and in this channel we talk about crime cases. If you're interested, hit that like button in the face. Wow, it's October already. Time really flies. See, that's what I hate about when summer is over. Everything just happens so fast in a blink of an eye. Can you believe there's still 2 months left in this year? How's your 2020 going so far? Are we doing okay? Are we still surviving? Are you excited for 2023? Let me know in the comments. There's a lot to unpack in today's video because this case is bonkers. When you see the picture of this guy, what do you think of him? Regular, normal white guy. What's wrong with him? But what if I tell you this dude tortured, raped, and murdered 33 young men and kids? Yep, that's him. John Wayne Gacy, the Killer Clown, one of the most notorious serial killers in the world. He also served as an inspiration to the movie It, Pennywise the Clown, and a character in American Horror Story. And surprisingly, he had a special connection with KFC. So what happened? Let's talk about it. John Wayne Gacy, he was born on March 17, 1942 in Illinois, Chicago. He was the second of 3 children and the only son. His father is John Stanley Gacy and his mother's name is Marion Robinson. He was born into an abusive family. From the age 4, Gacy was verbally and physically abused by his alcoholic father. Are we surprised? Despite the abuse, Gacy always admired his father and constantly sought his approval. You know, he just wanted a compliment from his dad, but he never gets one. His father was never a fan of him. Always insults him, calls him stupid, sissy, you act like a girl. And see, this is what I think. If you decided to have a kid, it is your responsibility to love and support them no matter who they are, despite their physical appearance, physique, gender, sexuality. When Gacy was 7 years old, he was molested repeatedly by a friend of the family. Allegedly, that's according to him. He never told his parents about it because he was scared of his father finding him at fault. Then he would get severely punished. When Gacy was in elementary school, he was diagnosed with a congenital heart condition, which limited his physical activity. As a result, he became overweight and always bullied by his classmates. At the age of 11, Gacy was hospitalized for several months at a time after experiencing unexplained blackouts, and his father decided that he was faking it. He just refused to believe that was real because the doctor wasn't able to diagnose what's the reason behind it. Later it was diagnosed that he had a blood clot in his brain, which was treated. And his dad was just a fucking asshole to him. I'm not trying to pity him or excuse the actions that he had done. It's just in general, no kids deserve this. After 5 years being in and out of the hospital because he was physically weak, so he got beat up regularly by his father for no particular reason other than his father just disdained him. After years of abuse, Gacy taught himself not to cry because tears will only infuriate his father more. But if you think I'm gonna sit here talk about his tragic childhood, you thought it wrong. Says he spent most of his time in the hospital, Gacy found it difficult to catch up with the school activities, so he decided to drop out. And him being a high school dropout just solidified his father's constant accusation that Gacy was stupid. And his father was like, okay, not only you're fat, you're ugly, you act like a girl, but now you're a high school dropout. You're dumber than dumber. See what I did here? At the age of 18, Gacy was still living with his parents. He became involved with the Democratic Party and worked as an assistant precinct captain. The reason why he decided to get into politics is because politicians have power. That's something he never had from the constant put down by his father. But his father quickly squelched whatever good came out of his political involvement. He belittled Gacy's association with the party. He called him a party patsy. After years of abuse, he finally exploded. He had enough. It was that incident that his father, having refused to let Gacy use his own car, he was like, that's motherfucking it. I'm not gonna tolerate that shit anymore. So he packed his bag, moved to Nevada, Las Vegas. In Las Vegas, Gacy worked for an ambulance service a short time, but then was transferred to a mortuary where he was working as an attendant. He often spent nights alone at the mortuary where he would sleep on a cot next to the embalming room. That's where they put the bodies. On the last night that Gacy worked there, he got into a coffin and fondled a corpse of a teenage boy. Afterward, he was so confused and shocked by the realization that he had been sexually aroused by a male corpse. So he called his mother the following day, and without providing any details, he asked his mother if he can just return home, and surprisingly his father agreed. So he packed his bag again and went back to Chicago after only being gone for 90 days. Back in Chicago, Gacy forced himself to forget about what happened at the mortuary and move forward. Despite not having completed high school, he was accepted at Northwestern Business College and graduated in 1963. Honestly, I don't know how he did that, because how can you even go to college without a high school diploma? Because back then, GED wasn't really a thing. He then took a management trainee position with the non-Bush Shoe Company and was quickly transferred to Springfield, Illinois, where he was promoted to a management position. That's also where he met his first wife. You're probably gonna be like, wait, isn't he gay? I know, right? But just keep watching. Since they both were working for the same company, then these two started dating, and 9 months later, they got married. During his first year in Springfield, he became very involved with the local Jay-Z, and he spent most of his time in that organization. He was so dedicated, he was utilizing his salesmanship training to gain positive attention. He powered through the Jay-Z ranks, and in April 1964, he was awarded the title of Keyman. By 1965, he was appointed the vice president of the Jay-Z Springfield division. And later that same year, he was recognized as being the third most outstanding Jay-Z's in the state of Illinois. If the devil works hard, John Wayne Gacy works harder. I think the reason why he was hustling so hard is because he wanted that validation. That's something he never had from his father. For the first time in his life, Gacy felt confident and full of self-esteem. He's married, he got a good future in front of him, people adored him, listened to him. He was everything. There's one thing that threatened his success was his growing need to be sexually involved with young male teens. In September 1964, Gacy and Marlene moved to Waterloo, Iowa, where he managed 3 Kentucky Fried Chicken owned by Marlene's father. Ooh, girl's rich. And they were also staying in Marlene's parents' home rent-free. Gacy soon joined the Waterloo Jay-Z's and once again quickly moved up the ranks. But unlike in Springfield, the Waterloo Jay-Z had a dark side that involved illegal drug use, wife swapping, prostitution, and pornography. That to him was like opening a Pandora box. So he started regularly participating in these activities. Gacy also began to act on his desires to have sex with the male teenagers, many of whom worked at the fried chicken restaurant that he managed. He turned his basement room into a hangout dungeon as a way to attract teens. He would entice the boys with free alcohol, marijuana, and pornography. He would then take sexual advantage of some of the boys after they became too intoxicated to put up any resistance. Oh my god, this nail is driving me crazy, what the fuck? In 1967, their first child was born, it was a boy, and the second child was born a year after, it was a girl. And Gacy later described that this time of his life was nearly perfecto. Perfection. You know, he was perfect. And it was also the only time that he ever gained any approval from his father. A commentary that's shared by many serial killers is their belief that they're smarter than everyone and they think they will never get caught. And obviously, Gacy fit that profile. With his above average earning and his social connections through the Jay-Z's, Gacy's ego and confidence was off the roof. He became pushy and commanding and would often brag about his accomplishments, most of which were just transparent lies. And he insisted everyone to call him Colonel. I don't know why, maybe running 3 Kentucky Fried Chicken made him think he was Colonel Sanders. Okay, I am back with my brows filled. It took me 3 business days. In August 1967, Gacy had hired a 15-year-old Donald Voorhees to do odd jobs around his house. Donald met Gacy through his father, who was also in at Jay-Z's. After finishing his work, Gacy lured him to his basement with the promise of free beer and pornography. After Gacy supplied him with an abundance of alcohol, he forced him into having oral sex, and he even told him, you know, in order to have sex with the girls in the future, you need to try it on guys first. This experience seemed to unplug any fears Gacy had about getting caught. He just felt like he was the shit, you know, he was above the law. No one can ever catch him. Ain't nobody going to catch me, bitch. Over the next several months, he sexually abused several teenage boys. He convinced them that he was having a scientific research program. So he would pay $50 to the kids, which that's a lot. That's like the equivalent of $400 nowadays. So he was paying a lot of money to the kid. And he also blackmailed them. He was like, you know, I am in politics, right? I'm very powerful. If you tell anybody about this, you're gonna be finished. But in March 1968, it all came crashing down on Gacy. Voorhees told his father about that incident happened in the basement, and his father immediately reported to the cops. Another 16-year-old victim also reported Gacy to the police, and Gacy was arrested and charged with oral sodomy of the 15-year-old and attempted assault of the other boy, which he strongly denied. He was like, bitch, I didn't do it. What are you talking about? And Gacy said the accusations were a lie by Voorhees' father, who was trying to sabotage his effort to become the president of the Iowa's Jay-Z's. And some of his Jay-Z's friends believed it was possible, and it was also back in the 60s. Pedophilia wasn't really recognized and talked about in the society. In an effort to intimidate Voorhees and keep him from testifying, Gacy paid an employee, an 18-year-old boy. He gave that boy $300 to let that boy beat the fuck out of Voorhees to keep him away from going to the court. Voorhees went straight to the police, and they also arrested that 18-year-old boy. So he confessed that it was Gacy. He paid me $300. He wanted me to beat the fuck out of Voorhees so he can stop showing at court. And then Gacy was charged with conspiracy assault. By the time it was over, Gacy pleaded guilty to sodomy and received a 10-year sentence. And that, my friend, is the story of John. Bitch, you thought it was over? On December 27th, 1969, Gacy's father died of cirrhosis of the liver. He was devastated, and he asked the prison if he can attend his father's funeral. The prison was like, no bitch, sit down. Gacy did everything right in prison. He even earned his high school diploma, which I don't understand why. He already graduated from college. Why did he need a high school degree? Maybe he'd had nothing but time. So, you know, when you have time, you do a lot of things. His good behavior finally paid off. In October 1971, after completing just 2 years, 2 motherfucking years of his sentence, he got out. He was released and placed on probation for 12 months. By the time he got out, Marlene already filed divorce, and that obviously infuriated Gacy. He was livid. He was like, you know what? You and the kids, you guys are dead to me. But honestly, if I was Marlene, I would be fucking celebrating. Bitch, I would be like, if I motherfucking see you again, I would be motherfucking killing you by myself. After he got out, he moved back to Chicago and began rebuilding his life. He moved in with his mother and got a job working as a cook, and then worked for a construction contractor. He later bought a home 30 miles outside of Chicago in Des Plaines, Illinois. He had to live with his mother according to the probation terms. In early December 1971, Gacy lured a teenage boy to his house and tried to rape him. But fortunately, this boy escaped and went to the police. Then Gacy was charged with sexual assault, but the charge got dismissed because the boy didn't show up in the court, and for some reason, this news never got back to his parole officer. Y'all, I don't know if you noticed, these serial killers are so lucky. This motherfucker is so lucky. Imagine if he went out and purchased a fucking lottery ticket. Oh my god. On January 2nd, 1972, really? Right after New Year, Timothy Jack McCoy, he was 16 and he was planning on sleeping at the bus terminal in Chicago. His bus wasn't scheduled until the following day, but when Gacy approached him, offered him a tour of the city, plus let him sleep at his house, and he immediately said yes. Don't ever do that. When a stranger comes up to you and say, you know, they can take you in, do not do that. Ever. According to Gacy, he woke up the next day, saw McCoy standing at his bedroom door with a knife. And Gacy thought McCoy was trying to kill him. So he quickly charged at him, got the hold of the knife, and stabbed him to death. Afterward, he realized that he had mistaken McCoy's intention. The teen had a knife because he was preparing breakfast and had gone to Gacy's room to wake him up, although Gacy had not planned to kill McCoy when he brought him home. But he couldn't miss the fact that he had become sexually aroused to the point of orgasm during the killing. And in fact, the killing was the most intense sexual pleasure that he'd never felt. And Timothy McCoy was the first of many victims to be buried in the crawl space under Gacy's home. On July 1st, 1972, Gacy was married again to a woman called Carol Huff. Carol had 2 daughters, in which they were all staying at Gacy's home. She was aware why Gacy had spent time in prison, but Gacy downplayed it. He was like, you know what, I'm a different person now, everything had changed, new year, new me. Then I was like, bitch, are you blind? Are you Helen Keller? How the fuck can you miss that walking red flag? Within weeks of being married, Gacy was arrested again and charged with sexual assault after teen male accused him of impersonating a police officer to get him into his car, then forcing him to engage in oral sex. But the charges were dropped again. And this time, actually, it was the boy tried to blackmail Gacy. He literally did a Uno reverse. In the meantime, as Gacy added more bodies in the crawl space under his house, a foul smell began to fill the air, both inside and outside of Gacy's home, and it was so bad that the neighbor had to tell him to get rid of the smell. It was like, Ugh. In 1974, Gacy left his construction job and started a constructing business called PDM Constructors, which stands for Painting, Decorating, and Maintenance. And Gacy told his friend the reason why he was hiring these teenage boys to work with him is because he wanted to save the money. But we all know that's not true. He began posting available jobs and then invited the applicants to his house on the pretext of talking to them about a job. And once the boys were inside of his home, he would overpower them using various tricks, render them unconscious, and then begin his gruesome and sadistic torture that almost always gets them killed. While the days he wasn't killing young men, Gacy spent time reestablishing himself as a good neighbor and a good community leader. He is very good at this, pretending. So, be careful of your neighbors. He would throw parties and developed a close relationship with his next-door neighbors. He even dressed up as a clown. Pogo the Clown was his own creation. And he said that in his confession tape, the reason why he wanted to become a clown is clowns can get away with anything. Kids can sit on his lap and no one will actually suspect a thing. He would show up at kids' birthday party, children's hospital. People thought he just loved kids in general. But by day, he was a successful business owner and community do-gooder. But by night, unknown to anyone but his victims, he was the sadistic killer on the loose. In October 1975, his second wife filed divorce after Gacy admitted to her that he was attracted to young men, so he came out as bisexual. He never said he was gay. And honestly, doesn't matter who you are, no matter you're heterosexual, homosexual, bisexual, no one was interested in kids. On Mother's Day, he came out to her, and he had informed her that they would not be having any more sex together. He's like, this is the last time I'm gonna have sex with you. That's it. She was also bothered by all the gay porn magazines laying around the house and seeing John Gacy bring young boys to the house. Like, girl, like, what the fuck? I don't know. If your husband always brings young boys to the house, wouldn't you be like, what the fuck is going on? I just feel like she knew, but she never went to the cops. Not that Carol is out of his hair. Actually, to him, it's a good thing that he got divorced because no one can actually know what the fuck is going on in his house anymore. He could just continue to achieve sexual gratification by raping and killing young boys. From 1976 to 1978, Gacy had managed to hide the bodies of 29 of his victims under his house in that crawl space. So after 29 bodies, the house was at capacity. There's no room for one more body anymore. But that doesn't stop him. He kept killing and dumped the body into the river. On December 11th, 1978, in Des Moines, I don't know how to fucking say that, a 15-year-old boy, Robert Pease, went missing after leaving his job at a pharmacy. He told his mother and a co-worker that he was going to an interview with a construction contractor about a summer position. The contractor had been in the pharmacy earlier in the evening discussing a future remodel with the owner, and when Pease failed to return home, his parents obviously contacted the police. The pharmacy owner told the investigator that the contractor was John Wayne Gacy. When Gacy was contacted by the police, he admitted that he was at the Nissan pharmacy that day, but he never saw the boy. And this obviously contradicted with one of the Pease fellow employees had told the investigators. You know, shit doesn't add up. Someone must have been lying. So Gacy was denying that he had never spoken to the boy, raised a lot of suspicions. Investigators ran a background check and everything fucking came out. You know, the arrest, the prison time, everything fucking came out. So obviously Gacy became the main suspect. On December 13th, 1978, a warrant to search John Wayne Gacy's house was granted. While the investigators searched his home and cars, he was at the police station giving an oral and written statement about his activities at the pharmacy on the night Pease disappeared. The evidence collected at Gacy's house included a high school ring for the... Oh my god, I just choked on my own spit. A high school ring for the class of 1975 with initials JAS, and handcuffs, drugs, 2 driver's licenses that weren't issued to Gacy, child pornography, police badge, guns and ammunition, a switchblade, a piece of stained carpet, hair samples from his car, and store receipts, and several items of teen-styled clothing in size that would not fit Gacy. And investigators also went down into the crawl space, but they didn't discover anything for the first time because of the odor was too pungent. They were like, oh my god, what is that? So they fucking left. Then I was like, if you're a police, you definitely know what that body smells like, and why the fuck did you leave? So they were just suspecting John Wayne Gacy, but the problem is they didn't have any evidence that can link John Wayne Gacy to Pease. And 2 surveillance teams were assigned to watch Gacy 24/7. The investigators continued their search for Pease and continued interviewing his friends and co-workers. They also began interviewing people who had contact with Gacy. And what investigators learned was that Robert Pease was a good family-oriented kid. John Wayne Gacy, on the other hand, And they also learned that Pease was not the first person, but the 4th person that disappeared and had associated with John Wayne Gacy. So after 8 days of the investigation, the investigators, they went to Pease's home, talked to his parents, and during that conversation, his mother mentioned that that night he went missing. One of the employees had told her that she had borrowed her son's jacket, and when she went on her break and left a receipt in his jacket pocket. And that was the same jacket that Pease had on when he left to talk to the contractor about the job and never returned. That same receipt was later found in the evidence collecting during the search of John Wayne Gacy's house, and further forensic tests were performed and had proved that John Wayne Gacy had been lying and Pease was actually at his home. I'm gonna put on some lashes, I'll be right back. So after the cats are out of the bag, Gacy realized he's finished. On the morning of his arrest, the detective observed that Gacy went to his friend's house and told them goodbye. He was taking pills and drinking in the middle of the day. He also talked to a few people about committing suicide. What finally led to his arrest was a drug deal because the police didn't have enough evidence to arrest him for the murder. But they were like, this guy needs to be put behind bars, so they arrested him for the possession of marijuana. While in custody, Gacy was informed that the second search warrant of his house was issued, and this news gave him chest pain, and then he was taken to the hospital. In the meantime, the search of his house, particularly in the crawl space, had begun. And the shit that they found in the crawl space scared the fuck out of them. And when the cops were in the crawl space, one discovered 3 puddles over there. When he pointed the flashlight onto the puddle, he saw red worms and maggots. They wiggling on the puddle. And you know when bugs see the light coming, they were like, ooh! Then they start digging the bodies. Gacy was later released from the hospital and got taken back to the custody. Now that he knew that his game was up, he confessed everything. He confessed killing Robert Pease. He also confessed another 32 victims, starting in 1974, and the total amount could be as high as 45. This bitch literally killed a small village. During the confession, he explained how he had restrained his victims by pretending to do a magic trick, which required that they put on handcuffs. He then stuffed socks and underwear into their mouth and used a board with chains, which he would place under their chest. Then wrap the chains around their neck. He would then choke them to death while raping them. They found 29 dead bodies buried in his house, and through dental and radiology records, 28 out of 33 bodies were identified. That's as in 2022. Gacy went on trial on February 6, 1980 for the murder of 33 young men. His defense lawyer tried to prove that John Wayne Gacy was crazy, but the jury of 5 women and 7 men did not agree on that. After less than 2 hours of the deliberation, and they came back with the verdict of guilty, and John Wayne Gacy was given the death penalty. While still on death row, Gacy was still taunting the authorities with different versions of the story to stay alive. Death penalty doesn't happen right away. It took them 14 years to execute John Wayne Gacy. Before the execution, he said that in a confession tape.
Hey, I got news for you. I killed 33 times. You're only gonna kill me once. Gacy outsmarted him again.
John Wayne Gacy was executed by lethal injection on May 9, 1994. For his last meal, he asked a family bucket from Kentucky Fried Chicken, and his last words were, "Kiss my ass." Now bitch, that's the story of John Wayne Gacy, the killer clown. Oh, finally. It's just so horrifying and fucked up that he didn't show any kinds of remorse. He didn't care about nobody but himself. I'm glad that he's dead now, but honestly, he could have suffered more. Death to him was just a relief. I wish he get killed brutally in prison by an inmate just like Jeffree Dahmer. My heart goes to all the victims and their family members. What are your opinions? Let me know in the comments. Thank you so much for watching this video, and don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. And remember, be safe, vigilant, and take care.